And for Brian Roth, the play-by-play announcer for the Colorado State Rams, we get northern exposure. How are you, my friend?
Hey, I'm doing very well. Yeah, I guess we're a little bit north. I describe it more as more in the west. But, the one misconception everybody has about Colorado is that, at least on the Front Range, that it's snowing and cold all the time during the winter. And we're fine if people continue to believe that, because that means they won't move into our state. We have too many people out here.
I understand. I have been to Fort Collins. It is a beautiful, beautiful town and a great atmosphere. I haven't been to a football game there. I was there during the summertime, but it's beautiful. And the stadium has just recently been refurbished. You've got a program that's on the rise. Let's just start before we look specifically at Alabama and Colorado State. Just talk about all the great things that have gone on at Colorado State with the football program the last few years. I know it's kind of started with Jim McElwain. Now it continues with Mike Bobo, support from the administration. A lot of good things happening with CSU football.
Yeah, no question about that. Well, for the last 49 years, Colorado State has played in an off-campus stadium. And really, if you take it in it of itself, it was a great place. It was right against the base of the foothills, and it was a beautiful place to watch a football game. But the problem was, it was 3 miles away from campus, and there's a big dirt parking lot around it, and that was the tailgating, and you didn't get that on-campus college experience that just about everybody has across the nation. And so about 6 years ago, they started to push to build a new stadium on campus at Colorado State University. And lo and behold, about 2.5 weeks ago, the new stadium right in the middle of the Colorado State campus there in Fort Collins, it opened against Oregon State. The Rams thrashed the Beavers. And, Colorado State, you look at the facilities now, with the new stadium, football is completely housed in the stadium. It's away from every other sport in Colorado State. A brand new state-of-the-art weight room. All their training tables are there. All the health, all the meeting rooms, players' lounge, players' locker room, coaches' offices. It is all a one-stop shop, and the practice fields are just adjacent to the football stadium. So everything Colorado State football has and needs is right there at the new stadium. And, it's not going to ever have to feel like Alabama or USC or Ohio State, but it certainly has the feel of big-time football in Colorado at Colorado State that, really, Gary, has not existed there for the past, forever. It's never existed there.
Well, it's happening now, and I thought Jim McElwain, when Colorado State hired him from Alabama, was a great hire. Same thing with Mike Bobo. You bring in guys from the SEC, and they know exactly what, big-time football looks like. They understand the recruiting landscape, and you start to bring in a higher caliber of athlete. And you mentioned the season opener against Oregon State. You blew those guys out. And then you took Colorado into the fourth quarter, a team that played in the Pac-12 championship game last year. I've been telling people here in Alabama, this is a good football team. And, Brian, you'll remember as well as anybody, in 2013 when Coach Mack and them came in here, that was a 14-6 game going to the fourth quarter. Alabama pulled away to win 31-6. But I tell folks, you can't sleep on Colorado State. This is the kind of game for Alabama. If they don't have a good week of preparation and they're not dialed in, this could be an interesting game in the second half because you guys have enough athletes to make plays against anybody, including Alabama.
Yeah, but there's no question what Jim McElwain was able to do, and now Mike Bobo, as you mentioned, they are getting a higher caliber of athletes. And the thing that Mike Bobo is really doing, Gary, is going down south and using his connections in the South with, of course, his time at the University of Georgia. And so we have a lot of guys from Florida, Georgia, South Carolina, all coming up to Colorado State, and guys that might have been overlooked by SEC schools or guys that maybe had interest in SEC schools but got hurt and had to go to the JC route. Michael Gallup is a fine example of that, a kid that I think is one of the best wide receivers in the western part of the United States. I think he's an NFL guy, but he's a Georgia kid, and he had several SEC offers out of high school, but ended up having to go the JC route. And, of course, when that happens, a lot of those SEC schools obviously move on. They don't have to stick with the JC kid. But Mike Bobo stuck with him, and he's an SEC caliber athlete that kind of fell through the cracks and now at Colorado State. And that's where CSU under Jim McElwain and now especially under Mike Bobo starting to make some inroads by getting those type of guys that have the Power 5 athleticism and ability, but for one reason or another kind of got overlooked or went the junior college route. So, what Jim McElwain did, though, is he changed the culture here at Colorado State. He did an excellent job. And, Gary, you bring up the game in 2013. Colorado State's football program had fallen off the map. They had back-to-back 3-9 seasons before Jim got there. The 2013 year was his second season. Now, he had gone 4-8 in his first season, but his second season was 2013. And I think that Alabama game was the turning point for this Colorado State football program. And I say that because of this. That's the football program that walked out of Bryant-Denny Stadium in 2013 saying, you know what? We just took Alabama and we played them tough.
Right.
And now here we are. We're going back to the Mountain West Conference. We know that we can play with anybody in our conference. If we can go on the same field with Alabama and at least compete, that's what they did in 13. They competed. And so they took that back to the Mountain West Conference. They won 8 games in 2013, and then 2014, Gary, they won 10 games. We're in the top 25 towards the end of the year. And then, of course, Jim McElwain left for the University of Florida, and they bring in Mike Bobo. But the turning point to me for the Colorado State football program over the last decade was the 2013 game at Alabama.
Absolutely. I agree with you. And from that point on, this is a program on the rise. Brian Roth, our guest here on the Bud Light Hotline on the Gary Harris Show. You can follow him on Twitter if you want to keep up with Colorado State football at Brian H. Roth. Let's talk about the strong connection to the University of Alabama on this staff, and that's Will Friend, former Alabama starting offensive guard for 4 years, started his coaching career here in Tuscaloosa. He's your offensive coordinator and offensive line coach. How special do you think this is for him to bring a football team into Bryant-Denny Stadium on Saturday night that he's a part of to face the Crimson Tide?
Yeah, I think it's probably pretty special for him. And, of course, he has extensive experience coaching-wise down there in the SEC, too. And, of course, he's a coach through and through.
He really
is. His dad,
is.
Obviously, was a coach. And, I was talking to Mike Bobo about Will last night on a radio show, and he goes, you know what, Will's the type of guy that he has zero hobbies outside of his family and football. I mean, those are the only two things that really are important in his life. And it's family and friends, and then it's football, and he doesn't do anything else. He doesn't golf, he doesn't fish, he doesn't do anything else. And so that's just kind of epitomizes what kind of coach he is, and I know what kind of player he is back in the days at Alabama. I think Will is gonna enjoy going back there with this football team. But I know there's nothing that he wants to do more than to go in there and beat the Crimson Tide. And it's an interesting relationship. Mike Bobo and Will Friend have become great friends over the years, and I'd even go as far as say you can call them best friends. And those two guys from the University of Georgia said, hey, listen, we're going to go to a college, and it ended up being Colorado State. We're going to go to a program, and we're going to build a program back up, and we're going to go do this together. So Mike Bobo and Will Friend are really, really close. And I know both of them, of course, with Mike Bobo being a former Bulldog there at UGA, both these guys would love to go into Alabama and show well. And of course, obviously, they'd love nothing more to win.
Brian, I'm getting up against the clock, but just a real quick story. You might want to ask Will about this sometime. When I was covering him, and I go back to high school with him when he was playing in Neshoba Central High School in Philadelphia, Mississippi. I was working in TV over in Mississippi, and I went to practice on a Thursday up there to preview a game. It was our game of the week or whatever it was. And Chuck Friend, his dad, they were in full pads on a Thursday. Chuck had not been happy with the practice that week, and I said, Coach, what are you doing full pads on a Thursday? He said, they don't play the game in shorts. They play it in full pads. I mean, they practice. I had never seen that, anybody practicing in full pads on a Thursday. I'm not saying he did it every Thursday, but he did that particular week to get their attention. Last minute, from a football standpoint, we referenced a 2013 game. Mike Bobo said, I loved his press conference. We played it earlier this week on my show. He made it clear all the respect that he has for Alabama. He knows the talent level. He knows the coaching. But he said, we're going in there to try to win the football game. Bottom line, we're not in awe. Just give me a minute capsule on how you think this football game will play out on Saturday night.
Well, I think first off, they have to eliminate big plays because Colorado State. I mean, you can't let Jalen Hurts go for 55 yards on the opening possession of a game. You can't give up any pick sixes or have any catastrophic plays in this contest. I mean, that's a given. And you look at the 2013 game, they really had one catastrophic play, and that was a blocked punt early in the first half for Alabama that turned into a touchdown. So, I mean, you literally has to play. I mean, you can give up yards, but you just can't give up catastrophic plays. And then, as Mike Bobo was telling me last night, he goes, listen, you don't win on the road, and especially you don't win on the road against a team of the caliber of Alabama if your quarterback doesn't play exceptionally well. And so, Colorado State has a senior quarterback in Nick Stevens who's been in a lot of games. Certainly never been Alabama, but that doesn't mean he hasn't played in big games. So, you have a puncher's chance with a quarterback that is experienced and has taken a lot of snaps at the Division I level. So, I look at those two things. You just can't give up explosive plays. You got to keep Alabama in front of you and try to hold them off offensively, keep it to a low-scoring game, and then try to get your quarterback to make some plays for you. So that would be, I think, the game plan for Colorado State, but it's easier for me to sit here and say it than for the Rams to go out there and do it.
Final 30 seconds. A big fan showing for this game from Colorado State. A lot of people looking forward to coming to Tuscaloosa for this game.
Yeah, absolutely. And, the funny thing is, a lot of the fans that are going down were fans that went down there in 2013. They had such a great experience going down there and experiencing what it's like to play in an SEC atmosphere, not just SEC atmosphere, but, again, Alabama, all right? Alabama. So a lot of the fans that went down 4 years ago, they loved it so much and thought the hospitality was so good that most of them are all going back down again.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Brian. I'll try to say hello to you Saturday evening in the press box.
Absolutely. Thanks, Gary.